This is Chapter 7. At Tier 3, running the daily workflow stops being about survival and starts being about command. Not motivation, not hustle. Command. Most shops don't fail because they lack customers. They fail because they let the day run them minute by minute, interruption by interruption, until labor hours quietly evaporate and nobody can explain where the time went. Every advisor knows the feeling. The door chime doesn't stop. It just changes tone. One customer wants reassurance. Another wants speed. A technician wants permission. A phone call wants answers you don't yet have. And underneath all of it is the pressure no report shows, the sense that if you don't respond to everything immediately, something will fall apart. So capable advisors become funnels. They try to catch everything. They answer everyone. They apologize constantly. They bounce from interruption to interruption, believing motion equals progress. It feels responsible. It feels busy. And it's one of the most expensive patterns in the building. Because while you're being busy, labor is bleeding. Labor is not like parts. Parts can sit on a shelf. Labor cannot. The technician hour that wasn't flagged at 9 o'clock doesn't roll to 10. It disappears. The bay that sat idle while you were about to get to it doesn't forgive you later. That inventory is gone forever. At Tier 3, this is the shift that changes everything. Labor is inventory and it is perishable. Once you see that clearly, the day looks different. Interruptions stop being equal. Waiting customers stop being just emotional problems and start being priority signals. Block bays stop being inconveniences and become production emergencies. Silence stops being neutral and becomes costly. Most workflow chaos comes from one root failure. The moment every demand becomes equal, production collapses. When the loudest voice wins, the nearest interruption wins, or the most recent conversation wins, the shop becomes a democracy. And democracies don't run production. They negotiate it away minute by minute. Tier 3 leaders don't negotiate the day. They run it. They understand that the shop only works when time and priorities are controlled deliberately. That doesn't mean yelling. It doesn't mean rushing. It means deciding early, clearly, and defensively what matters now, what matters next, and what must wait without killing labor. This is where posture changes. Instead of saying 1 second to everyone, the leader sets the clock. Instead of apologizing for delays, the leader explains status. Instead of hoping approvals come through, the leader creates decision windows that don't go cold. Instead of pulling cars into bays based on optimism, the leader pulls cars based on capacity, parts reality, and consent. The difference is not effort, it's discipline. Most workflow failures don't happen because the shop is too busy. They happen because no one is actively deciding which minute belongs to which outcome. When time isn't owned, it fragments. When it fragments, labor inventory leaks out in small, expensive drips that no KPI report can trace back cleanly. This chapter exists because advanced advisors understand something most shops never formalize. The day is a production system, not a conversation marathon. If you don't run the clock runs you. If you don't protect decision windows, they close on their own. If you don't know why a bay is blocked, you are already losing money. Tier 3 workflow leadership is not about being calmer. It's about being clearer. Clear about time. Clear about priority. Clear about what unlocks movement and what does not. When that clarity exists, chaos doesn't disappear, but it stops being in charge. This chapter sets that standard. Not how to be nicer. Not how to multitask better. But how to own the day so labor converts, promises are accurate, and the shop produces on purpose instead of by accident. That is what running the daily workflow means at Tier 3. Labor is perishable inventory. Every idle minute is lost profit. At Tier 3, this isn't a metaphor. It's an operating fact. Most shops understand inventory when it's sitting on a shelf. Tires, filters, fluids, parts, you can see them, count them, protect them. If inventory isn't moving, alarms go off. Someone asks why. Someone fixes it. Labor doesn't get the same respect because it's invisible. A technician's hour doesn't sit on a rack. It shows up as potential. And potential is easy to waste because it doesn't look like loss in real time. It looks like waiting. It looks like about to. It looks like as soon as I finish this call. And that's exactly how profit leaks out of a shop without anyone noticing. Until the day is over, every idle minute is inventory thrown in the trash. When a bay is blocked waiting on approval, that hour is gone. When a car is pulled in without parts, that hour is gone. When a decision window cools and the tech moves on, that hour is gone. You don't get it back tomorrow. You don't recover it with a busy afternoon. It's perishable. This is why workflow problems feel so frustrating to diagnose. At the end of the day, the shop looks busy. Cars came in. Phones rang. Advisors work nonstop. And yet, hours sold are short, ARO feels soft, and techs are frustrated. The problem isn't effort. The problem is conversion. Labor inventory only becomes money when it's actively converting into approved, billable work. Anything that slows that conversion, indecision, delay, bad sequencing, false promises, destroys value silently. This is where many advisors get trapped in good intentions. They want to be responsive. They want to be polite. They want to answer every interruption immediately. So they treat every request as equal and every delay as understandable. That mindset feels customer-friendly. Operationally, it's destructive. At Tier 3, responsiveness without prioritization is negligence. When labor is treated as inventory, priorities become obvious. A waiting customer isn't just a person with feelings, they're a time-bound decision that either unlocks work or wastes it. A blocked bay isn't just inconvenient, it's a production emergency. A tech standing idle is not between jobs, they are hemorrhaging inventory. Once you see labor this way, workflow decisions stop being emotional and start being mechanical. You stop asking, who needs me right now? You start asking, where is labor currently leaking? That shift changes everything. You no longer pull cars into bays because it feels proactive. You pull them because parts and consent are real. You no longer let approval sit because the phone is ringing. You collapse decision windows because idle labor is unacceptable. You no longer apologize your way through the day. You explain status and move the clock. This is also where trust is built. Customers trust shops that look in control. Control doesn't mean speed for speed's sake. It means clear priorities, honest timelines, and movement that makes sense. When labor is moving intentionally, customers feel it, even if the answer is not yet. At Tier 3, labor is inventory, time is the warehouse, and workflow is the system that keeps product from spoiling. If you don't run that system deliberately, you will stay busy and underperform forever. So here's the question that exposes whether you're running workflow or letting it run you. Do you know why every bay is, or isn't, moving right now? Not in theory. Not generally. Right now? That question matters because the moment you can't answer it cleanly, labor inventory is already leaking. Most advisors can tell you what's supposed to happen next. Fewer can tell you what is actually blocking movement in real time. And that gap between intention and reality is where chaos lives. A bay isn't idle by accident. It's idle because something is missing. Consent is missing. Parts are missing. Information is missing. A decision was delayed. If you can't name the missing unlock immediately, you can't fix it. And if you can't fix it quickly, the hour disappears. This is where workflow chaos disguises itself as stress. Advisors feel overwhelmed because they're juggling too many conversations, not because the system is complex. They respond to the loudest interruption, the most impatient customer, or the most recent message, while the real leak continues unchecked. That's how shops lose hours without noticing. The dangerous pattern looks like this. A tech waits quietly, an advisor assumes they'll get to it, a customer cools off, and the bay stays blocked. No one panics, no alarms go off, but inventory is rotting. At Tier 3, leaders reverse this pattern by forcing clarity. Where's that car sitting? What unlocks it? Is that unlock time, parts, or consent? If the unlock is consent, you collapse the decision window immediately. If the unlock is parts, you don't pull the car. If the unlock is time, you schedule intentionally and communicate early. There's no fourth category. This is why advanced workflow leadership feels calmer under pressure. It's not because there's less happening. It's because priorities are visible and enforced. When you always know why a bay is stalled, you stop reacting emotionally. You dispatch. You reassign. You move labor to productive work. You protect inventory. So ask yourself honestly, if someone asked you right now why each bay is or isn't moving, could you answer without guessing? Because if the answer is no, the shop isn't overwhelmed. It's unmanaged. And until that question has a clear answer at all times, chaos will continue to feel like a personality problem instead of what it really is, a workflow control problem that leadership is responsible for solving. At Tier 3, daily workflow becomes the discipline of converting labor inventory into completed work without chaos. This is where most shops fall apart, not because they don't care, not because they aren't trying, but because they never formalize who controls the clock. The labor inventory doctrinatum exists to answer one question: who is running the day, people or time? Every shop day has a fixed amount of labor inventory, not estimated, not theoretical, fixed. Once the doors open, the clock starts burning inventory whether you manage it or not. The only question is whether that inventory converts into productive hours or evaporates in waiting, indecision, and false starts. The first execution discipline is time grid control. Champion workflow does not run on vibes. It runs on anchors. Appointments begin at the top of the hour, and every appointment has a decision window attached to it. These windows exist because labor must be unlocked while the visit is still live. The 20-minute marker is non-negotiable. By that point, the inspection must be complete, or you must know exactly why it isn't and what changes that. Still working on it is not an answer. The unlock is either time, access, or additional information. If you can't name it, you've already lost control of the appointment. The 30-minute marker is just as critical. By then, the inspection must be reviewed and either presented or status communicated. Silence past this point is not neutral. It creates doubt. Doubt cools decisions. Cool decisions stall approvals. Stalled approvals block bays. Tier 3 advisors do not let that chain break. The second execution discipline is priority enforcement. Not all demands are equal. Treating them as equal is what creates chaos. A waiting customer is a relationship risk and a time-bound decision. A blocked bay is a production emergency. A ringing phone is a queue. When these are treated the same, labor inventory bleeds. Champion advisors prioritize based on impact to labor conversion. They resolve block bays first. They collapse decision windows before answering non-urgent calls. They set expectations early so they aren't negotiating later. This isn't being rude, it's being responsible. The third execution discipline is technician workload visibility. If you don't know what each technician has in front of them, you are promising blindly. Blind promises create betrayal. Betrayal destroys trust faster than delay ever will. Tier 3 advisors always know how many hours are already committed to each tech, what is approved, what is pending, and what is blocked by parts or consent. That visibility is what allows accurate timelines. Accurate timelines create trust even when the answer isn't ideal. The fourth execution discipline is parts reality gating. Parts availability is not background information, it is a gate. Cars are only pulled into bays when parts and authorization are real. Pulling a car in on hope creates hostage jobs, vehicles that block labor while waiting on something that may or may not arrive. Hostage jobs turn productive shops into parking lots. Tier 3 leaders refuse to create them. The fifth execution discipline is decision compression with ethics. When a technician is waiting on approval, that is inventory leakage, Tier 3 advisors do not let that sit. They run a short, proof-based approval conversation with two responsible paths. If the customer cannot decide, the advisor creates a committed next step and moves labor to another productive job. No hovering. No pleading. No guessing. Finally, Tier 3 workflow leadership means refusing half-started work. Teardown without parts and approval is not progress. It's congestion. It forces rushed reassembly later, increases mistakes, and steals future labor hours. Work either moves forward with a defendable plan, or it does not start. When these disciplines are enforced, the day feels different. Not quieter, but clearer. The shop stays loud, but it stops being chaotic. Labor converts. Bays move. Advisors stop apologizing and start directing. This is how you own the day. This chapter establishes the Tier 3 standard for daily workflow. Labor is inventory, and the day must be run like a production system. First, you adopt the correct lens. Every unworked minute is lost inventory. Waiting is not harmless. Silence is not neutral. Hope is not a plan. Once you see labor as perishable, indecision becomes unacceptable. Second, you enforce time anchors. The 20-minute inspection window and the 30-minute decision window are not suggestions. They are the points where labor either unlocks or leaks. Miss them, and the rest of the day becomes recovery instead of production. Third, you control priorities instead of reacting to noise. Block bays and waiting customers take precedence over interruptions. Phones are queues, not emergencies. Workflow runs on impact, not volume. Fourth, you protect labor with visibility and gates. You know technician workload, you respect parts reality. You refuse to pull cars without consent and components. This prevents hostage jobs and keeps bays productive. Fifth, you lead decisions cleanly. When approvals stall, you collapse the decision window ethically. When decisions can't be made, you stage intentionally. Nothing sits without a reason, and you always know what unlocks the next move. Tier 3 workflow leadership is not about doing more, it's about wasting less. Less time, less motion, less labor inventory. When you run the day this way, chaos loses its grip. Customers feel led. Technicians feel respected. Promises are accurate. Profit becomes predictable. The challenge is simple and enforceable. Tomorrow, run the day on 2 rules. Every appointment gets a 20-minute inspection target. Every appointment gets a 30-minute presentation or status touch point. Do that consistently, and the day stops owning you. Because labor wasted is inventory thrown away. And when you control labor, you control the shop. That is running the daily workflow at Tier 3.